Good.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We're the Orange team, and we're going to tell you about our plan to slow the spread of COVID-19. But before we do that, how about some quick introductions? My name is Baxter, and I'm a rising sophomore at Boston University. Since I've been back in Hawaii, I've taken on the role of resident chef for my household.
Hi guys, my name is Gerald. I'm an upcoming sophomore at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where I'm a pre-med student majoring in biochemistry.
Hello, everyone. My name is Davin. I'm a computer science student at UH Manoa, and upon graduating, hope to pursue my interest in becoming a software engineer.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen, and I'm an upcoming senior at Portland State University, where I major in marketing with a focus in food, beverage, and goods leadership. Now that introductions are out of the way, let's dive in. Last year, visitor spending on the islands equated to $17.75 billion. However, as 2020 began and COVID ramped up, Hawaii tourism shut down, meaning that businesses all over the state felt the drastic impacts of the lack of tourism. As you can see, in April of 2019, there were 856,000 visitors. That doesn't even compare to April of 2020, in which 4,564 visitors came to the islands. That's a 99.5% decrease. Restaurants were by no means exempt from feeling these impacts. In fact, across the US, it's projected that 85% of individual restaurants may be forced to close their doors due to COVID. Waiting for tourism to boom again isn't really an option for many local businesses, especially since, in a study on individual travel plans over the next 6 months, only 13% of respondents indicated that they plan to travel by plane to their next destination. This means that visitors may not return to the islands as quickly as restaurants need them to. As for local consumers, a recent survey by the Bank of Hawaii found that 47% of Hawaii residents are planning on eating out less. All in all, the problem's clear. Consumers, both local and visitors, are apprehensive to go to restaurants, especially when dining in due to COVID.
To best address this problem, we have spent the last 5 weeks researching, surveying consumers, and talking with different local restaurants to get their perspective. In surveys we conducted of consumers, we found that 60% of respondents indicated that they consider the relative safety of an establishment before going out. Furthermore, 83% indicated that depending on how it is implemented, they would like a more concrete way to quantify the safety of location. On the business side of things, local restaurant owners have expressed concerns about keeping expenses low. They have also mentioned how hard it is to keep up with the ever-changing guidelines for restaurants. Based on this and many other insights, we have proposed issuing COVID compliance certificates, which will provide guidelines for restaurants to ensure that they are doing their part to curb the spread of COVID-19. This will be implemented and controlled by an external organization. The certificate will have a physical copy, but many features of our initiative will be accessed through our website. Here, consumers can verify which restaurants are following safe protocols, in turn making them more comfortable doing business with the establishment. Both restaurants and consumers will also be able to stay informed about new guidelines so that they can make more informed decisions. Overall, we believe our proposal addresses the concerns of both businesses and consumers by bringing peace of mind to would-be patrons and encouraging dining out.
The COVID compliance certificate grades restaurants based on how well they follow safety regulations that we have created based on interviews conducted with small businesses around the island. After restaurants apply to become part of the program, inspectors will come and monitor how well that establishment follows the guidelines. After the inspection, a score and certificate will be given, which will be regulated with routine inspections and community reviews from consumers to highlight exemplars and violators.
To obtain a certificate, a restaurant owner will apply on our website for a $15 fee, with subsequent inspections for a cost of $5 each. Within a 1-week window, the restaurant owner should expect the initial inspection. If passing, a physical certificate will be issued and the restaurant will be featured on our website. To maintain this status, routine inspections will occur every 2 to 4 weeks or as needed.
Expanding on what Davin said, routine inspections will be graded using guidelines that we have created based on interviews with local businesses. We interviewed Chris Iwamura, the owner of Rainbow Drive-In, and he mentioned that local restaurants like his don't always have the manpower to enforce certain guidelines. To overcome this, we have adapted our guidelines to ensure that they are enforced with signage and minimal staff if there are any violations. We have taken into account many concerns that other business owners had mentioned in the interviews and adapted our guidelines to make sure that they are all taken into account. Following these guidelines, restaurants are either given 1 point or 0.5 points for following one guideline, and final scores are graded on a 10-point scale. Certificates will be issued according to the final score of the establishment. The colors of the certificate are similar to those given by the Department of Health. Green certificates are given to restaurants who pass their inspection. Yellow certificates are conditional passes, and restaurants are also given 24 to 72 hours to prepare for another inspection. Red certificates are given to restaurants who fail their inspection.
As mentioned before, in addition to certification, we also hope to create a professionally made website for our initiative for use with both restaurants and consumers. For restaurant owners, they may apply and pay for the certification on our website. In addition, to showcase and give exposure for good work, our partners will be listed throughout our web pages for viewing. For consumers, they will also be able to report restaurants they see in violation of our guidelines, as well as write general reviews of participating establishments. Over time, we hope that this will engage normal people in promoting safe practices in our restaurants.
One of the most important parts of this whole certificate is public buy-in. If the public isn't aware or doesn't use this certificate, it won't do much to help restore consumer trust. We found that in the pandemic, social media usage is extremely elevated, with Instagram seeing as much as a 7.6% increase in usage. Since getting impressions on social media is relatively low cost, we propose targeting Hawaii residents aged 21 to 34 with interests in entertainment, wellness, food and drinks through Facebook and Instagram. This is a demographic of about 200,000 people. We expect this group to be the most active on social media and the most likely to properly utilize the website interface of our certificate. To get more impressions at a lower cost, we would want to also utilize free publicity options. We intend to do this through coverage on things like local news, major publications, the radio. We will address many large organizations like KHON, KATV, Midweek, Star Advertiser, and this will allow us to gain impressions from individuals not active on social media platforms that we might be advertising through. Now that we've addressed how we'll market it, Baxter is going to talk to you more about the costs and benefits of this plan.
Thanks, Kristen. So there's two major benefits to our program. First, our certification initiative will make restaurants safer. By convincing restaurants to actually follow the CDC guidelines, we'll stop COVID from running rampant through restaurants. At the same time, our data suggests that the certifications will help people feel safer and more normal, if you will. In turn, that'll lead to an uptick in restaurant revenue. Our estimates are in the vicinity of 6%. If every restaurant in the 4 major counties in Hawaii were certified, our estimates show an economic stimulus of $12 to $14 million statewide. Now it's time to look at the cost to see if we can put a price on safety. We built a pro forma in Excel to model the costs and benefits based on the scope of our initiative. With a trial size of 10 restaurants, the overall setup cost would be a little bit less than $12,000. Our setup cost estimate includes a $1,000 marketing budget, as well as $6,000 to develop and maintain a professional website for 1 year. The rest of it goes to miscellaneous expenses. The variable cost per restaurant would be about $80 for 1 month. So that means our 10 restaurant trial run would cost about $13,000 in total, setup costs and all. Now, if we were to implement this program for every restaurant in all 4 of Hawaii's major counties, we estimate that it would cost about $350,000 upfront and $300,000 for every month thereafter, for a grand total of $650,000 for the first 30 days of operation. Now that you know the benefits and how much it costs, Kristen's going to suggest some ways that we could come up with that funding.
As Baxter mentioned, there are ways where we would be able to find this funding to better use our certificate. A lot of the elements of the certificate make it eligible for grants within the CARES Act. The first grant is the Food Safety Inspection Service section, which allots up to $33 million to state and local governments for the funding of inspection services related to COVID-19. The next best grant we found is the Public Assistance Grant for the funding of emergency programs that are intended to assist in measures to lessen the threat to public safety. All in all, there are definitely options available to provide us with a significant amount of funding for this project.
To recap, our COVID compliance certificate will make people safer, help the economy, and breathe life back into Hawaii's struggling restaurants. Our plan is the product of both exhaustive secondary research and community feedback from consumers, restaurant owners, employees, the government, and most importantly, our mentors. Not only that, but our solution is definitely reasonably implementable. One huge strength of our plan is that almost all aspects can be adapted and implemented by anyone attempting a similar initiative. In fact, the Department of Health is currently doing just that, and we believe they would be well served to implement some of our ideas into their own program. Finally, we encourage our judges to reach out to their networks to put us in touch with those that have the resources to implement or adapt our plan. At the end of the day, our initiative is about helping the people of Hawaii get back on their feet. Above all else, we hope we've helped you to see how important it is to get food back on the table, both in homes and in restaurants. Mahalo for your attention. I would like to open it up for questions.
Hey, this is Jason. So first I want to commend you and your group for a really good job. I think that a lot of work has gone into this. I like the fact that you created I think some thorough criteria. It's relatively realistic. And one of the things I miss the most is actually going out to restaurants. Did you guys give any thought to employee testing? So looking at the healthcare sector, all the places that have had exposures within a business have come from people that were employees that came in asymptomatic, exposed people within. So despite having all the right upfront screening, it was the back door per se that the exposures took place. Just have you given any thought to that?
That's a great question. And I think that's why part of the criteria for restaurants to follow, it's not just employee to consumer sections, we also have employee to employee guidelines. Because at the end of the day, we can't control what employees are going to do on their own time. And so to best protect against that, we can ensure that employees aren't spreading it to other employees the best we can. So there is a section in the guidelines specifically for that.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Jackie Smythe. I too want to commend you. You guys did a great job. And I think you came up with a lot of really, really great ideas. I have a couple of questions as it applies to your budget. I know you have marketing at $1,000 per, and I'm wondering, does that include your research as well as what you're going to do for paid media?
Yeah, so the marketing budget was, we had about, Kristen outlined the minimum for 200,000 impressions was about $468. And so for a conservative estimate, we doubled that and then rounded it to 1,000 to come up with our marketing budget.
And it does include research, ongoing research?
I believe so. Kristen?
That was for our initial.
Oh, yeah.
So
It
it doesn't include ongoing, no. It's just mostly the initial marketing to gain traction to the initiative to begin with.
Okay, great. And then I have one other question. How do you propose, because I know that with the COVID situation right now, sometimes staffing is difficult. So to have people to be able to do, to go out and take a look at a restaurant and provide the certificate within a week and then visit every 2 to 4 weeks, how do you propose that staffing?
So the Department of Health currently, there's a lot of restaurants that are like either shut down or just on hiatus. And so they have a lot of inspectors that are currently not doing a whole lot, which is why they've implemented their idea of doing their COVID inspections. We propose that we would use, I guess, work alongside them to use those inspectors. And at the same time, we believe that there are enough people that would be looking for work right now that we would be able to staff our initiative sufficiently. It doesn't require extensive training to be a COVID compliance inspector.
Thank you.
So this is Jody Ito. To follow up on your question about the inspectors, I know you mentioned that you wanted to leverage the current Department of Health inspectors, but then you also mentioned perhaps employing one. Was that cost for hiring these inspectors included in your budget at all?
Yes, in the
Okay.
budget, we have costs for labor and
Okay.
there's it includes the variable cost per restaurant is essentially labor, travel costs, HR expenses, other miscellaneous expenses included with employees. All the specifics are detailed in the pro forma that was attached with the white paper.
Okay. I guess it wasn't clear that if the inspector cost was external to the restaurant. So thank you for clarifying. And the other question I had is that these restaurants who went through this inspection process would then be displayed on your website. And a lot of times websites, display order is very important. So was there any consideration as to how you would be organizing these restaurants on? It would be by, of course, by classification, but anything beyond that, right? Because the ones that tend to come up first might have a preferential treatment by the consumers who visit your website.
Yeah, I think there could be different ways on how to filter the results on the page. One way could be the amount of consumer views per restaurant or the amount of reviews per restaurant. Those with more reviews would be the ones displayed first. But beyond that, yeah, we don't really have any much rudimentary filters in mind right now.
Yeah, maybe a suggestion would be to rotate them, right? If they all pass, then that way everybody kind of have some equal time at some point being up front. But thank you, you guys did an excellent job. I'm very impressed with the amount of research and the time, and your presentation was actually well organized. So thank you.
Thank you.
So to Team Orange, this is George Kai-Levi, and I have a very short question. I'm very cognizant of the time. So with regards to the COVID compliance certificate, what are your expectations with regards to the consumers who come into the restaurants? In other words, I understand, compliance on the part of the restaurant, but what is the restaurant going to do as far as ensuring that folks come in and they're not sick, or what mitigations are you going to be taking with regards to the consumers to make sure that the controls are in place?
Yeah, I think expanding on what Kristen said earlier, we have different sections of the guidelines for consumers that either could be customer to customer guidelines or employee to customer guidelines. So in our rubric, we've outlined some of the guidelines that may be followed by restaurants, whether it be providing like hand sanitizer to every customer that's going in, putting barriers or signage around the restaurant, or allowing order ahead options so that customers don't need to wait in line. So I think there are ways to mitigate customer spreading in the restaurants.
Yeah, and to add a little bit to that, our consumer to consumer guidelines for the COVID compliance certificate are all the ways necessary that we've found to minimize risk of transmission of COVID-19 while not costing a substantially larger amount of money for the restaurants to operate.
We have time for one short question.
This is Chris Benjamin. I'll try to make it very short. The world is changing and perceptions are changing every day, and our understanding of COVID is changing. For example, a couple months ago, we thought it was all about touching things. Now we understand it's all about the air we breathe. Have you thought about how you will keep up to date on both people's concerns and the health guidance that's coming out from CDC and others?
I believe we actually have a slide for that. Sorry, I'll let you have this one, Chris.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things is, and it's one of the concerns that many of the local businesses we interviewed did have, was that things are changing so rapidly. And that's a very important part of our website interface, is that they can get live updates, and the restaurants on it will be on a mailing list, and customers who want to check in to see what the current guidelines are can check in on the website so they can constantly know. And that's why inspectors will be coming more frequently at this time, just because it's so versatile and we never know what's going to happen.
Right.
So I think as far as mitigating that, it's just realizing that the restaurants need to be in the loop and consumers are going to be in the loop, and just having a constantly updated website is the best thing at this moment.
Thank you.